cold bit into my knuckles, raw and unforgiving, as I gripped the flashlight tighter, its beam slicing through the Detroit night like a frail promise of safety. 6 months into this gig as a security guard at the old factory complex, and I thought I knew every shadow, every creak of the rusted pipes. The place was a ghost of its former self, once churning out auto parts, now just a sprawl of empty buildings, their windows like hollow eyes staring into the dark. My shift ran from 10 Tuzerud p.m. to 6 Huzuro a.m., a grind that left my body screaming for sleep and my mind numb from staring at grainy camera feeds. It was a paycheck, though enough to keep the lights on and food on the table for my 2 kids. Most nights, it was just me, the rats, and the endless quiet. But that night, something was waiting in the shadows. Something that didn't care about my bills, or my kids, or the fact that I was just doing my job. The security office was a cramped box, barely big enough for a chair, and a desk cluttered with coffee cups. The monitors flickered, casting a pale glow across my face as I sipped my 3rd cup of the night. Michigan cold had settled in the kind that seeps into your bones and makes your joints ache. I hadn't slept well the day before my daughter, 8, had a nightmare, and my son, 12, was up late stressing about school. My eyes burned heavy with fatigue, but I forced them to stay open, scanning the screens. That's when I saw it. Camera 3, out by the back loading dock. A shadow, quick, deliberate, like a predator slipping through the frame. I leaned closer, squinting at the grainy image. Just the wind, I told myself, blowing trash across the lot. But then it moved again, darting from one corner of the screen to the other, too fast to be debris, too human to be nothing. My stomach tightened. I set the coffee down, the mug's warmth fading against my palm, and grabbed my flashlight and jacket. The factory at night was a labyrinth of towering buildings and narrow alleys, their walls stained with decades of rust and neglect. Stepping outside, the air hit me like a slap, sharp and bitter. My boots crunched on the gravel as I moved toward the loading dock, the flashlight's beam wobbling with each step. The door was shut, the lock untouched. I swept the light across the chain link fence. No holes, no signs of tampering. Maybe it was nothing, I thought, but the hairs on my neck stood up a primal warning I couldn't shake. I turned to head back, my breath clouding in the frigid air, when I heard it, a low, guttural chuckle, soft but unmistakable, slithering out of the darkness. I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs. The sound came again closer, now, from the alley to my left. I swung the flashlight toward it, the beam catching nothing but empty air. Then they emerged, stepping into the light like phantoms. 4 maybe 5 figures, their faces hidden behind cheap Halloween masks, grinning skulls, twisted clowns, a devil with hollow eyes. They were young. I could tell from their jittery movements, their bodies buzzing with a restless energy, like kids hopped up on too much sugar. But there was nothing innocent about them. One of them lunged forward, shoving me hard in the chest. I stumbled back, the flashlight slipping in my grip, my breath catching in my throat. "You lost, old man," one of them taunted, his voice muffled behind the mask, but dripping with malice. Before I could answer, another fist slammed into my gut, the pain exploding through me like a firecracker. I doubled over, gasping, the air ripped from my lungs. Then they were on me, a swarm of fists and feet, their laughter ringing in my ears, high-pitched, wild, like hyenas circling a dying animal. I swung the flashlight, aiming for a skull mask, but someone snatched it from my hand, tossing it into the gravel. A fist connected with my face, and I felt my nose give way, a sickening crunch, followed by a warm gush of blood. It flooded my mouth, metallic and thick, choking me as I tried to scream. They didn't stop. Kicks rained down on my ribs, my back, my legs. I hit the ground hard, gravel biting into my palms and knees. I curled into a ball, arms shielding my head. But it was us. The pain was everywhere, a white-hot storm tearing through my body. Their laughter grew louder, more frenzied, as if my suffering was a game, a sick kind of entertainment. "Look at him. Squirm." One of them jeered, his voice cracking with excitement. I thought of my kids, my daughter's tear-streaked face, my son's forced bravado, and it was the only thing keeping me from giving up. But then, a final blow landed on my skull, and the world went black, a void swallowing me whole. When I came to the cold, was the first thing I felt gnawing at my skin, like a living thing. My face was pressed into the gravel, the sharp stones digging into my cheek. Blood coated my tongue, mixed with the grit of dirt and broken teeth. I tried to move, but my body screamed in protest, every muscle and bone on fire. My ribs burned with each shallow breath, and my hands, God, my hands were swollen, useless, the fingers bent at wrong angles. I spat out a glob of blood, the taste lingering sour and wrong. The night was still. The attackers gone, their laughter a fading echo in my mind. My jacket was torn, my Air Jordans 96, the ones I'd saved up for, were missing. I fumbled for my wallet, half expecting it to be gone, but it was still there. They hadn't wanted money. They'd wanted to break me. Getting to my feet was a battle. My legs wobbled, threatening to give out, and the world spun like a drunken carousel. I leaned against the wall, its rough surface scraping my palm, and forced myself to move. Each step was agony, my ribs stabbing me with every breath, my head pounding like a drum. The factory loomed around me, its empty buildings, watching in silence, indifferent to my pain. I don't know how long it took to reach the security office, minutes, maybe hours. But when I finally stumbled inside, I collapsed into the chair, my vision swimming. The phone was a blur, my hands shaking so badly I could barely punch in 911. Attacked, I mumbled, my voice slurred, barely recognizable. Factory. Help. I gave the address, then let the phone slip from my grip, my head lolling back as I fought to stay conscious. The paramedics arrived in a haze of flashing lights and urgent voices. They lifted me onto a stretcher, their questions a distant hum I couldn't answer. My jaw throbbed, the pain too raw to form words. At the hospital, the doctors cataloged my injuries like a mechanic assessing a wrecked car, broken ribs, a concussion, fractured fingers, a face so swollen I didn't recognize myself in the mirror. They pulled out 2 shattered teeth, the roots jagged and bloody, and handed me painkillers with a warning to take it easy. "You're lucky," one doc said, his voice clinical, detached. Lucky. The word felt like a slap. Lucky didn't cover the nightmares waiting for me, the bills piling up, the fear in my kids' eyes when they saw me. The cops came by, 2 of them, an older guy with tired eyes and a younger one scribbling in a notebook. "Can you describe them?" The older one asked, his tone flat, like he'd heard it all before. I tried, but what could I say? Masks. Young. Fast. Laughing like they were high on my pain. I told them about the Halloween masks, the way they moved, the cruelty in their voices. They nodded, wrote it down, promised to look into it. But I knew the truth. Detroit was a city of shadows, and those kids had melted into them, untouchable. I never heard from the cops again. Days blurred into weeks, each one a struggle to climb out of bed. My sister, a nurse, came by with meals and fresh bandages, her hands gentle, but her eyes heavy with pity. I hated it, hated needing her, hated the way my body betrayed me. My ribs ached, a constant reminder of that night. My hands still swollen, couldn't grip a fork, let alone a flashlight. My daughter clung to me, her small arms trembling, tears soaking my shirt. "What happened, Daddy?" she whispered, her voice breaking my heart. I lied, told her it was an accident at work. Anything to keep the truth from scarring her. My son tried to be strong, his jaw set, but I saw the fear in his eyes, the way he watched me, like I might break. The bills kept coming, relentless, mocking my uselessness. I couldn't work, couldn't provide. The factory offered platitudes. We're sorry, we'll add another guard, but it didn't erase the memory of that night, the way those masks had stared down at me, empty and cruel. When I finally went back, the other guards slapped my shoulder, their smiles forced. "Glad you're back, man," they said, but their eyes betrayed them, flickering with the same fear I carried. Nobody wanted to be next. I replay that night in my head over and over, searching for answers that don't exist. Why me? Why them? They didn't take my wallet, didn't rob the factory. They just wanted to hurt, to destroy, to laugh as I bled. It doesn't make sense, and maybe it never will. The scars on my body are fading, but the ones in my mind, they're deeper, raw, a constant reminder of how fast the world can turn against you. I'm more careful now, always scanning the shadows, always expecting the worst. It keeps me sharp, but it's no way to live. I keep going for my kids, for the hope that they'll never know the kind of fear I do. But some nights, when the house is quiet and the dark presses in, I hear that chuckle again, low and sinister, and I know I'll never be free of it. August 2nd, 1991, Modesto, California. The sun had just bled out over the horizon, leaving the streets draped in a heavy, suffocating darkness. I was behind the wheel of my cab, the engine humming low, the kind of sound that becomes your heartbeat after 2 years of driving these roads. The air was thick, with the smell of asphalt and cheap diner grease, the kind that clings to your clothes no matter how many times you wash them. I was 24, still shaking off the ghosts of my past friends who'd ended up in cells, or 6 feet under their faces, burned into my memory like cigarette scars. Modesto, in the 80s, had chewed me up, spit me out, but I'd clawed my way to something honest. Driving a cab wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. The wheel, the road, the endless nights, they were my redemption. Friday nights, like this one, were always a gamble. The city came alive after dark, buzzing with drunks, dreamers, and the desperate. I cruised down the avenue, the neon signs flickering like dying stars, my eyes scanning for fares. The radio crackled with static, spitting out half a song before I turned it off. Silence suited me better. It let me hear the pulse of the city, the faint hum of trouble brewing. I was about to take the 108 toward downtown when I saw her. a silhouette against the sodium glow of a street lamp, thumb-out suitcase at her feet. She stood on the cracked sidewalk, her posture fragile like a bird with a broken wing. Hitchhiking at 8:30 p.m. on a Friday. That was a death wish in Modesto. The streets turned feral after sunset, and every driver knew it. My first instinct was to keep going. Don't stop. Don't get involved. But something about her stopped me. Maybe it was the way her shoulders trembled, or the way her head tilted, like she was praying for someone to care. I pulled over the tires, crunching gravel, and leaned out the window. Before I could ask where she was headed, her voice cut through the night, shaky and raw. I don't have any money. I'm sorry. I need a ride. Please. Her words hit me like a punch. I'd heard that tone before my mom, years ago, when my dad's fists were still fresh in her memory. The girl's face was half hidden in shadow, but her eyes caught the light, wide and wet, like she'd been crying for hours. I should have driven off. Every cabbie knows you don't pick up strays without cash, not in this town. But I wasn't that guy anymore, the one who turned his back on someone begging for help. Get in, I said, my voice softer than I meant it to be. I'll take you. No charge. Her breath hitched, and for a second, I thought she'd collapse right there. Oh my God, really? Thank you. Thank you so much. She scrambled into the back seat, dragging her suitcase with her, the door slamming shut like a coffin lid. The cab felt smaller with her in it, the air heavier, like she'd brought something with her. Something I couldn't see, but could feel crawling up my spine. Where to? I asked, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. The airport, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I need to get to the airport. I nodded, pulling back onto the road. The airport was a good 20 minutes away, plenty of time to figure out what her deal was. Name's Joe. I lied, using the alias I gave every passenger. You never gave your real name in this job. It was like handing someone a piece of your soul. What's yours? She hesitated, her fingers twisting the strap of her suitcase. Sarah, she said finally, but it sounded like a lie too. Her voice was unsteady, like she was testing the name, seeing if it fit. You okay, Sarah? I asked, keeping my tone light, though I knew she wasn't. Nobody hitchhikes to an airport at night, looking like they just crawled out of a nightmare if they're okay. I mean, I can see you're not, but you want to talk about it. She didn't answer right away. Her reflection in the mirror showed her staring out the window, her face, pale lips trembling. The street lights slid over her features, carving shadows that made her look older, harder. I broke up with my boyfriend, she said at last. 3 years. It's over. I'm going to Florida. My grandparents live there. I let out a low whistle, more to fill the silence than anything else. 3 years is a long time. I'm sorry it ended like that. But you'd be surprised how many girls like you I've driven to the airport running from some guy who didn't deserve them. It's like a weekly thing. Sometimes, daily. I was trying to lighten the mood to coax a smile out of her, but her face stayed blank, her eyes fixed on the darkness outside. I kept talking, hoping to ease the tension. Look, I'm here if you need to vent. I'm a good listener. Comes with the job. She didn't respond for a long time, just sat there, her hands clutching that suitcase, like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, slower, heavier, like she was unearthing something buried deep. I moved here from the East Coast for college. Met him my junior year. He was perfect. At first, I stayed quiet, letting her words fill the cab. She told me how she'd fallen for this guy, how he'd been her rock through the chaos of college, how they'd moved in together after she graduated. He'd supported her, paid the bills, while she hunted for a job in a cutthroat field. But then things changed. He got impatient, mean. Arguments turned into screaming matches, 2-3 times a week. She was trying. God, she was trying. But the job market was a brick wall, and every rejection letter made him colder, crueler. Last night, she said, her voice breaking, it got bad, really bad. He told me to pack my stuff, started throwing my things around. It got violent. My grip tightened on the wheel. I knew that story too well. My dad had been that guy, the kind who thought love was a fist and control was a cage. Jesus. Sarah, I'm sorry. You okay? I mean, physically. Do you need a hospital? No, she said, quickly, too quickly. He didn't hurt me. Not like that. I frowned, glancing at her in the mirror. Her eyes were darting now, like she was scanning for an escape. You sure? Look, if he laid a hand on you, we can stop at a payphone, call the cops. Get it on record. Get it on. No. The word exploded out of her, sharp and desperate, slicing through the cab like a blade. My heart stuttered, a cold prickle running down my neck. That wasn't fear. That was something else. Something darker. Whoa. Okay, I said, raising one hand off the wheel, trying to calm her. I'm just saying, if he hurt you, the cops need to know. It's important. I just need to get to the airport, she said, her voice dropping low, almost a growl. Please, no cops. I didn't push it, but the air in the cab had changed. It was heavier now, like a storm was brewing in the back seat. I kept driving, my mind racing. Why was she so scared of the cops? Had she fought back? Hit him. I tried to reassure her. Hey, if you did something to defend yourself, that's okay. The cops will see it that way. Self-defense is self-defense. They won't, she snapped, her voice ice cold. They won't see it that way. Why not? I asked, my patience fraying. She didn't answer. Instead, she leaned forward, her eyes locking onto mine in the mirror. And then she said it, her voice heavy with something that made my blood run cold. Because they won't. Now take me to the airport. I'm begging you. Her words hung in the air, thick and suffocating, like smoke you can't wave away. I'm begging you. It wasn't a plea. It was a command, wrapped in the trembling voice of a scared girl. My hands tightened on the wheel, the leather creaking under my grip. The road stretched out ahead, a black ribbon under the flickering streetlights. Modesto was quiet now, the kind of quiet that feels like the city's holding its breath, waiting for something to break. I wanted to believe Sarah was just a girl, running from a bad breakup, but that no, she'd thrown at me, that desperate, jagged edge in her voice. It was a warning. I'd driven enough nights to know when someone was hiding something. And Sarah, she was hiding a whole damn graveyard. I kept my eyes on the road, but my mind was in the rearview mirror, watching her. She'd gone silent again, her hands still clutching that suitcase, her knuckles white as bone. I tried to piece it together. Violent fight. No cops. Florida. Grandparents. It didn't add up. If her boyfriend had hit her, why not report it? Why the panic? Unless she wasn't the victim. Sarah, I said, keeping my voice steady. If you did something to him, like, I don't know, hit him back, that's okay. You were protecting yourself. But if it's more than that, you gotta tell me. I can't be part of something I don't understand. She didn't answer. The silence was deafening, pressing against my eardrums. I glanced at her in the mirror, and for a split second, I saw it a flicker in her eyes, like a predator sizing up its prey. My stomach twisted, a cold knot forming deep inside. I didn't do anything, she said finally, but her voice was hollow, like she was reading from a script. Just drive. I wanted to believe her. God, I did. But I'd been robbed 3 times in 2 years, and I knew what danger felt like. It was the way the air shifted, the way your skin prickled, the way your heart started pounding before your brain caught up. And right now, my heart was hammering. Okay, I said, forcing a smile. No problem. Airport it is, but I couldn't let it go. Not yet. I'd seen too many people run from their mistakes, and I wasn't about to let this girl drag me into hers. Look, if he hurt you, the best revenge is making him pay for it. Legally. One night in a cell might teach him a lesson. She laughed, a short, bitter sound that made the hairs on my neck stand up. That's not gonna happen, she said, her voice low, almost a whisper. Why not? I pressed my patience thinning. You really gonna let this guy walk all over you? She went still, her body rigid in the back seat. And then she said it, her voice like a blade sliding between my ribs. He's not going to do anything to anyone anymore. The world tilted. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment, the cab felt like it was shrinking the walls, closing in. I stared at the road, my hands trembling on the wheel. What the hell did she just say, Sarah? I started, my voice shaking. If you did something bad, I can't keep driving. You're making me an accessory to whatever this is. If you just threw a lamp at him, fine, I'll get you to the airport. But if he's hurt, if he's bleeding somewhere, I need to know. She didn't answer. Instead, I heard it, a rustling sound, like fabric shifting. My eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, and my heart stopped. She was reaching into her jacket, her movements slow, deliberate, and then I heard it. Click, the sound of a handgun being cocked. I'd heard it before, 3 times to be exact. Each time I'd walked away with my life, but not without scars. This time, I wasn't so sure. My mouth went dry, my tongue sticking to the roof of my mouth. She had a gun. A goddamn gun. Well, miss. I said the words spilling out before I could stop them. There's no need to do anything rash. Her voice came back soft and shaky, but laced with something cold, something deadly. Just take me to the airport. I don't want to hurt you. Please, don't make me. My blood turned to ice. I wanted to scream, to slam on the brakes, to throw her out of the cab and run. But I couldn't. Not with that gun in her hand, not with her finger on the trigger. I kept driving, my hands shaking so bad I could barely keep the wheel straight. The road blurred in front of me, the street lights smearing into streaks of yellow. My mind was racing, replaying her words. He's not going to do anything to anyone anymore. Had she hit him, stabbed him, shot him? Was there a man lying in a pool of his own blood right now, gasping for air, while I drove his killer to freedom? I wanted to ask her. I wanted to know if she'd killed him, if she'd left him dying, if she was running from a crime scene. But I valued my life more than I valued answers. So I drove the silence between us, heavier than the gun in her hand. The airport loomed ahead, its lights cutting through the darkness like a beacon. But it didn't feel like salvation. It felt like a trap. My hands were slick with sweat, slipping on the wheel as I navigated the final stretch of road. Sarah sat in the back, silent, her presence like a weight pressing down on my chest. The gun was still there. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it, its cold metal promise hanging in the air. I kept my mouth shut, my eyes fixed on the road. Every instinct screamed at me to pull over, to run, to do something. But I was trapped. Trapped by her, by the gun, by the fear that one wrong move would be my last. The airport was close now, the glow of the terminal lights painting the night in harsh whites and yellows. I could see people moving in the distance, travelers, cabbies, security guards. Safety was so close, but it felt a million miles away. "Stop here," Sarah said, suddenly, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. I glanced at her in the mirror. She was leaning forward, her eyes locked on the terminal, her face unreadable. "Here?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "We're not at the drop-off yet. I'll walk," she said. "Stop the car." I hesitated, my foot hovering over the brake. The terminal was still a good 100 yards away. The drop-off point crowded with cars and people. Why stop here in the shadows where no one could see us, Sarah? I started, but she cut me off. "Stop the car." Her voice was different now, harder, colder, like the mask she'd been wearing had finally slipped. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding, and eased the cab to a stop on the side of the road. The engine idled, the only sound in the suffocating silence. "Now turn it off," she said, "and give me the keys." My stomach dropped. "Miss, I can't do that," I said, my voice shaking. "This cab's my livelihood. I need it, too." She moved so fast, I didn't have time to react. The cold barrel of the gun pressed against my temple, the metal biting into my skin. My breath stopped, my body freezing, as the world narrowed to that single point of contact. "Give me the keys," she said, her voice low and deadly. I tried to reason with her, my voice trembling. "You can't take a man's way of making a living. How am I supposed to feed my kids if I can't drive?" It was a lie. I didn't have kids, but I'd have said anything to keep those keys. She laughed, a sound that chilled me to the bone. "You don't get to tell me what I can't do," she said. "All you men thinking you can control everything. Not this time. Give me the keys, or you're not going home tonight. Or ever. My blood ran cold. I saw it then, the real Sarah. Not the scared girl, not the victim. The predator. The one who'd done something to her boyfriend. Something bad enough to make her run, to make her pull a gun on a stranger. I didn't argue. I couldn't. I reached for the keys, my hands shaking so bad, I fumbled twice before pulling them from the ignition. I held them out, and she snatched them from me, her fingers brushing mine cold as death. She opened the door and stepped out, dragging her suitcase behind her. I watched her in the mirror, her silhouette moving toward the terminal, her posture shifting back to that fragile, broken bird I'd seen on the side of the road. It was an act, all of it, and I'd fallen for it. I waited until she was out of sight, my heart pounding so hard I thought it'd burst. Then I stumbled out of the cab, my legs weak, and ran toward the terminal. I found a payphone, my hands shaking as I dialed 911. I kept looking over my shoulder, half expecting her to appear, gun in hand, ready to finish what she'd started. The cops showed up fast, their lights flashing in the dark. I told them everything, her story. The gun, the way she'd said her boyfriend wouldn't hurt anyone anymore. But by the time they searched the airport, she was gone. Vanished, probably on a plane to God knows where. The Bahamas, South America, Florida. It didn't matter. She was a ghost now, and I was left with nothing but her shadow. They found my keys in a trash can near the terminal, but my cab was out of commission until the company could get a new set. I went home that night, my hands still shaking, my mind replaying every word, every moment. I kept wondering if there was a man out there bleeding out on a kitchen floor because I hadn't stopped her. I never drove the same after that. Every passenger was a threat, every shadow a gun. Modesto's streets didn't feel like home anymore. They felt like a cage. And somewhere out there, Sarah, or whatever her real name was free. It was 2:47 a.m. when my phone screamed through the silence, a jagged sound that tore me from sleep like a knife through flesh. The voice on the other end was cold, mechanical. A cop's voice saying there'd been an incident at my diner. My diner. The words sank into me heavy as lead, and I knew in my bones that whatever waited for me out there in the Minnesota snow was something I'd never unsee. I'd been the area manager for a chain of 24-hour diners scattered across Minnesota's lonely highways for nearly a decade. They were small places, neon-lit beacons for truckers and night owls, surrounded by fields and woods that seemed to swallow sound itself. The diner on Highway 12 was my favorite, cozy, reliable, with a jukebox that played Sinatra and a coffee pot that that never went cold. Mike and Jenny ran the night shift, two of my best. Mike, a cook in his 40s, was a family man with a steady hand and a tired smile, working nights to put his kids through school. Jenny, a waitress in her 20s, was a single mom with a wit sharp enough to cut through the rowdiest crowds. They were the kind of people you could trust to keep the place running when the world was asleep. But that night, something walked into my diner that broke them both, and years later, I'm still haunted by what I saw on that grainy VHS tape. It was February, the kind of Minnesota winter that bites through your coat and settles in your chest. The wind howled like a living thing, rattling the diner's windows as if it wanted in. I was at home, buried under blankets, when that call came. The cop didn't say much, just that Mike and Jenny were involved, and I needed to open the office for the security tape. My stomach twisted as I pulled on my boots, the cold air stinging my face as I stepped outside. The drive to the diner was a blur of snow and headlights, my mind racing with possibilities. A robbery, a fight between drunks, or something worse. By the time I pulled into the lot, the diner's neon sign flickering against the dark, I was shaking, not from the cold, but from a dread I couldn't name. The diner sat alone, a glowing speck in a sea of white. Beyond it, the fields stretched into blackness, and the woods loomed like silent watchers. A single police cruiser was parked out front, its lights pulsing red and blue, painting the snow with an eerie glow. The officer, a stocky man with tired eyes, met me at the door. "Need to see the tape?" he said, his breath clouding in the frigid air. I nodded, leading him through the empty dining area. Tables, still set coffee cups half full, like everyone had vanished mid-bite. The air smelled of grease and stale pie, but there was something else, something sharp and wrong, like fear had soaked into the walls. We squeezed into the back office, a closet of a room with a sagging desk, a flickering fluorescent bulb, and an ancient TV hooked to a VHS player. The tape was already in-queued to 2:30 a.m. I pressed play, and the screen crackled to life, showing the diner's interior in grainy black and white. Mike was in the kitchen, scrubbing counters with slow, deliberate strokes. Jenny was out front, wiping tables, her ponytail swaying as she moved. The place was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels heavy, like the world's holding its breath. I leaned closer, my heart thudding against my ribs, waiting for whatever had turned my diner into a crime scene. Then the door swung open. 2 men walked in, and the air in the office seemed to thicken, like the tape itself was poisoned. They were in their late 20s, maybe early 30s, dressed in faded jeans and heavy jackets. One had a tattoo crawling up his neck, a jagged black web that spilled onto his cheek, glinting under the diner's fluorescent lights. The other had eyes that didn't blink hollow, like holes punched in a mask, sucking in the light around them. They moved with a calm that wasn't right, like predators sizing up a trap. Jenny greeted them, her smile professional but tight, and they slid onto stools at the counter. Mike kept cooking his back to them, oblivious. I wanted to scream at the screen to warn them, but the tape kept rolling, merciless. They ordered burgers, ate in silence, heads down, forks scraping plates. I kept waiting for them to leave to pay and disappear into the night. But then the tattooed one reached into his hoodie and pulled out a handgun, the barrel catching the light like a blade. The other followed, drawing his own weapon, and they aimed at Mike and Jenny with a casualness that made my blood freeze. Jenny's face went slack, her eyes, wide mouth open, in a silent scream. Mike's hands shot up, trembling so hard the spatula he'd been holding clattered to the floor. The men didn't shout, didn't rush. They gestured with their guns, motioning for Mike and Jenny to come out from behind the counter. Jenny clutched the counter's edge, her knuckles white before stumbling forward. Mike followed his face, pale sweat beading on his forehead. The men herded them toward the back, past the kitchen, to the walk-in fridge, a hulking steel box where we stored meat and produce. I thought they'd lock them inside, raid the register, and run. But then the tattooed one shoved Mike and Jenny into the fridge, and both men stepped in after them, pulling the heavy door shut with a dull thud. The camera lingered on that closed door, its steel surface gleaming dully in the dim light, and my stomach churned. Why go inside? What were they doing in there? The timestamp ticked on 2:34 a.m., 2:39 a.m., 2:44 a.m. 5 minutes became 10, then 20, then 30. I fast-forwarded, stopped rewound, my hands shaking as I searched for answers. The tape wouldn't give. The door stayed shut, a silent sentinel, guarding a secret I wasn't sure I wanted to know. 37 minutes. That's how long they were in there. Mike and Jenny, trapped in a freezing coffin with two armed strangers in a space barely big enough for 4 people to stand. I pictured them shivering, breath clouding the cold, biting into their skin as those guns stayed trained on them. Were they begging, crying? Or were they too scared to make a sound, forced to endure something so horrific? My mind recoiled from imagining it. Finally, at 3:11 a.m., the door creaked open. The 2 men stepped out calm, as if they'd just taken a smoke break. The tattooed one tugged his hoodie. Straight, a casual gesture that felt obscene in its normalcy. The other scanned the room with those hollow eyes, his gaze sliding over the camera like he knew I was watching. They strolled through the diner, past the register, stuffed with cash, past the safe in the office, and took nothing, not a dime, not a scrap of food. They walked out, climbed into a dark car, parked just out of frame, and vanished into the snow. My hands were clammy, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. They'd held my people at gunpoint for over half an hour and left empty-handed. Or had they? The tape kept rolling. 15 minutes later, a regular A trucker named Carl shuffled in his coat dusted with snow. He looked around, confused by the empty diner, and called out for Jenny. When no one answered, he wandered behind the counter, then into the back, his footsteps slow, hesitant. He checked the kitchen, the office, even the bathroom, before pausing at the walk-in. He cracked the door open, and his body jerked back like he'd been punched. The camera didn't show his face at first, but when he turned another angle, caught it, pale eyes, wide, like he'd seen something that didn't belong in this world. He fumbled for his phone, dialing 911, and darted to the grills to shut them off, his hands shaking as he glanced back at the fridge, shoulders hunched like he expected something to lunge out. 2 cops arrived minutes later. One nudged the fridge door open with his boot, shouting something I couldn't hear. Jenny staggered out, her hands plastered over her eyes, shaking so violently, an officer had to catch her before she fell. Mike followed slower, his own hands pressed tight against his face, moving like he was sleepwalking. Then, in a moment that still chills me, Mike twisted away from the cops, one hand still covering his eyes, and reached for the door, trying to go back inside. The officers yanked him back, but he fought his body, straining toward the fridge like it was calling him. Jenny collapsed into a booth, curling into a ball, her hands never leaving her face. They sat there, catatonic, shielding their eyes, like they'd seen something so awful they couldn't bear the world anymore. The cops tried talking to them, kneeling, gesturing, but got nothing. Mike and Jenny were statues, broken in a way I'd never seen. EMTs arrived, guiding them to an ambulance, but even outside, under the flashing lights, they kept their hands clamped over their faces. I appeared on the tape, then, bursting in my coat, half-buttoned my face tight with worry. The tape cut off, and I sat there, sick to my stomach, staring at the static on the screen. I turned to the officer, my voice hoarse. "What happened in that fridge?" He shrugged, his face grim. Mike and Jenny were in shock, not talking with no visible injuries. Whatever those men did, it hadn't left a mark, at least not one you could see. I locked up and drove home, the snow falling heavier, now blurring the world into a white void. Mike and Jenny were my people family in a way, and knowing they'd been through something so terrible tore at me. I tried visiting them at the hospital the next morning, but the staff turned me away. I called their homes, left messages, but neither answered. Weeks later, they quit, one by one, without a word. Mike, the steady father of two, became a ghost of himself, barely eating, not sleeping, until he vanished to California, leaving his wife and kids behind. Jenny fled to a farm in Iowa, her mom saying she was better, but spoke in short, clipped sentences, like she was afraid of her own voice. The police report called it an incident, with no details, no leads. The diner changed after that. Staff whispered about gangs, twisted games, even government conspiracies. But I ignored them. The truth was worse. No one knew what happened except Mike and Jenny, and they weren't talking. Customers stopped coming. At night, scared off by rumors that hung in the air like smoke. I added a night guard, upgraded the cameras, installed panic buttons, but it felt hollow, like locking the barn after the horses were gone. The diner's neon sign still flickered, but it wasn't welcoming anymore. It was a warning. Years passed, but I never forgot. I'd drive by at night, the diner glowing against the dark, and wonder who those men were. Sometimes I'd play that tape on my home computer, letting those 37 minutes crawl by, searching for clues in the grainy shadows. Sometimes it felt like seconds. Other times, an eternity. Were they still out there, planning their next game? What did they do to Mike and Jenny that broke them so completely? Eventually, I stopped watching, stopped asking, because some truths are too heavy to carry. But every winter, when the wind howls and the snow buries the world, I think of that fridge, and I wonder if I'm better off not knowing. It's 10:58 p.m. on April 26, 2013, and the Exxon gas station on Sternberg Road in Norton Shores, Michigan, hums under the faint glow of fluorescent lights. A young woman stands alone behind the counter, her warm smile a beacon for late-night travelers. Her name is Jessica Heringa, a 25-year-old mother, fiancée, and dreamer. In just minutes, she will vanish into the night, leaving behind a purse, a jacket, and a community shattered by questions that may never be answered. The air in Norton Shores carries a deceptive calm, the kind that lulls you into believing nothing bad can happen. Sternberg Road, lined with modest storefronts and sleepy homes, feels like the heart of a town where everyone knows your name. The Exxon station, a small brick building with wide glass windows, is a familiar stop for locals grabbing coffee or filling up before the long drive home. Inside, Jessica Herringa moves with quiet purpose. Her auburn hair is tucked behind her ears, and her green eyes flicker with the warmth of someone who makes strangers feel like friends. She's alone tonight, as she often is, working the late shift from dusk to dawn in a town like Norton Shores, where the crime rate is a whisper. Compared to Michigan's urban sprawl, working alone feels safe enough. The Fruitport Police Department is just a 5-minute drive away, and the station's regulars, truckers, night owls, and shift workers are more like extended family than customers. Jessica, a devoted mother to her 3-year-old son Zion and fiancé to Dakota Quayle, Dyer, pours her heart into this job. It's not glamorous, but it pays for her college courses, each one a step toward her dream of becoming an accountant. She's the kind of woman who leaves an impression, kind-hearted, ambitious, the sort who'd slip an extra candy to a kid at the counter just to see them smile. But tonight, something feels off. The air is heavier, the silence thicker. Outside the forecourt is empty, the pumps standing like silent sentinels under the sodium lights. Jessica glances at the clock, 10:59 p.m., and wipes down the counter, her fingers tracing the same path they've followed for months. She doesn't know that beyond the glass in the shadows, where the light doesn't reach something, watches. Something waits. The world she knows, the one built on routine and small-town trust, is about to fracture. Inside the station, the hum of the cooler blends with the faint buzz of the radio playing a soft country tune. Jessica's purse sits on a shelf behind the counter, her jacket draped over a chair. Her phone tucked inside holds photos of Zion's latest drawings and a text from Dakota. Love, you see you in the morning. She smiles at the thought of her son's laughter, the way his tiny hands cling to hers. These are the moments that keep her going through the long, lonely shifts. Then the silence shifts. It's subtle at first, like the air tightening before a storm. Jessica pauses, her hand hovering over the counter. She tilts her head, listening. Nothing. Just the hum, the buzz, the distant chirp of crickets. She shakes it off, chalking it up to the late hour and the coffee wearing off. But the feeling lingers, a cold prickle at the base of her neck, the kind that makes you check the locks twice. She steps to the window, peering into the darkness. The forecourt is still empty, the road beyond swallowed by night She doesn't see the silver minivan parked just out of sight, its engine off its driver, hidden in the shadows. She doesn't hear the faint crunch of gravel under boots, the soft clink of metal in a gloved hand. Jessica, Haringa, beloved daughter, mother and friend, is moments away from becoming a ghost in her own story. 11 o'clock strikes, and the Exxon station falls into an unnatural hush. A regular customer, a middle-aged man named Tom, with a weathered baseball cap and a thermos of coffee, pulls into the forecourt. He's been stopping here for years, always greeted by Jessica's smile and a quick chat about the weather or his grandkids. Tonight, though, the station feels different. The windows reflect only darkness, and the door swings open with a hollow chime. Tom steps inside, expecting to see Jessica behind the counter, maybe restocking the candy aisle or flipping through a magazine. But the counter is empty. The radio hums faintly. The cooler drones on, but there's no sign of her. Jess. He calls, his voice swallowed by the silence. No answer. He waits, shifting his weight, assuming she's in the bathroom or grabbing something from the back. Minutes tick by. 2, 3, 5. The silence grows heavier, pressing against his chest. Something's wrong. Tom's gut twists a warning, honed by years of late-night drives and too many true crime shows. He calls her name again, louder this time, and steps behind the counter, a place he's never ventured before. The shelf holds her purse open, with a pack of gum and a hairbrush spilling out. Her jacket is slung over a chair, her phone nestled inside. The cash register sits untouched, the drawer closed, the safe locked. Nothing is out of place, yet everything feels wrong. He moves to the back, his boots scuffing the linoleum. The storeroom is dim lit by a single flickering bulb. Jess, you here? His voice trembles now, the silence mocking him. He checks the bathroom, the break room, even the tiny closet where they keep cleaning supplies. Nothing. Just her things abandoned, like she stepped out for a second and never came back. Panic claws at him. Tom pulls out his phone, hands shaking, and dials 911. I'm at the Exxon on Sternberg, he says, his voice tight. The clerk's gone. Jessica Haringa. Her stuff's here, but she's not. Something's not right. The operator's calm questions only sharpen his fear. He paces, glancing at the door, half expecting Jessica to walk in with a laugh, saying she just stepped out for air. But the door stays shut, the night outside impenetrable. Minutes later, a police cruiser pulls up its lights, cutting through the darkness. Officer Daniels, a veteran with a stern jaw and tired eyes, steps inside. He listens to Tom's story, his face unreadable, and begins a sweep of the station. No signs of a struggle, no overturned shelves, no broken glass. The cash register holds $400 in crisp bills, the safe untouched. Daniels checks the back, his flashlight sweeping over Jessica's belongings. He pauses at the back door, slightly ajar, and spots something. A single drop of blood, no bigger than a dime, glistening on the concrete. That drop changes everything. Daniels calls for backup, his voice low but urgent. A canine unit arrives, the dog sniffing eagerly at Jessica's jacket before bolting outside. The trail leads to the edge of the lot, then stops cold, as if she vanished into thin air or into a vehicle. The blood, later confirmed as Jessica's, is the only clue, a tiny, terrifying hint of what might have happened. But it's not enough. The station, with no interior cameras, offers no answers. The owner, when questioned, shrugs. Never thought we needed them. It's Norton. Shores. Daniels's jaw tightens, but he says nothing. The investigation has already hit a wall. Jessica's disappearance rips through Norton, Shores, like a blade. By morning, the news spreads a whispered horror in coffee shops and church pews. Jessica Heringa, the girl with the bright smile, the one who remembered your order and asked about your day, is gone. Her mother, Shelley Heringa, collapses when she hears her voice breaking as she speaks to reporters. My baby's out there waiting for me. I feel her. I just want her home. Her words, raw and desperate, echo in every heart. Dakota Quayle Dyer. Jessica's fiancé stands at a vigil, his face hollowed by grief. Zion keeps asking where Mommy is. He says, his voice cracking, I don't know what to tell him. We're not giving up. She's somewhere alive. She has to be. Zion, only 3, clings to his grandmother, unaware of the void swallowing his world. The community rallies their love for Jessica, fueling a desperate search. Flyers with her face smiling, vibrant plaster every pole and storefront. Vigils light up the night candles, flickering against the April chill, but the questions gnaw. Where is she? Why her? The police, led by Detective Larson, comb the surrounding woods, lakes and fields. Volunteers join hundreds strong, their boots sinking into mud as they call her name. The canine unit tries again, but the trail remains cold. The drop of blood haunts Larson, a puzzle piece that fits nowhere. Interviews with customers and co-workers reveal nothing unusual, only that Jessica was alone, vulnerable, a fact that now feels like a betrayal. the lack of cameras. The owner's negligence becomes a bitter talking point. How could they let her work alone? Shelley sobs her anger, a shared wound. Weeks turn to months, then years. The case grows cold, a file buried under newer cases. National shows like Disappeared feature Jessica's story, but no new leads emerge. The flyers fade, their edges curling in the rain. Shelley organizes monthly vigils, her hope a fragile flame. "I dream of her," she tells a journalist, her eyes distant. "She's calling me, but I can't find her." Dakota, worn by time, raises Zine alone, each milestone. Zine's first day of school, his 5th birthday, a reminder of Jessica's absence. Norton. Shores once a haven feels haunted, its innocence stolen by a mystery that refuses to relent. April 16th, 2016. A spark in the darkness. A 16-year-old girl in Muskegon County escapes an abduction attempt, her heart pounding as she describes a man in a silver minivan, his voice smooth but predatory. Her quick thinking saves her, and her detailed account leads police to Jeffrey Willis, a 46-year-old factory worker with no criminal record, but a chilling secret. A search of his home and minivan uncovers a nightmare: handcuffs, ropes, chains, leather restraints, a handgun, insulin, Viagra plastic gloves. Willis claims it's all legal. His smile, too calm, too practiced. Then they find the laptop. A folder labeled VIX holds 2 subfolders, RB and JLH. The RB folder contains mirror photos of Rebecca Bletch, a woman murdered in 2014, shot 3 times in the head. The JLH folder, created on April 26, 2013, the day Jessica vanished, holds dozens of images of her, some taken from social media, others more sinister, as if captured without her knowledge. The VIX folder also contains thousands of torture and snuff videos, a window into Willis's twisted mind. He's no stranger to the Exxon. Witnesses recall Willis as a regular, his flirtations with Jessica brushed off as harmless, but unsettling. Surveillance from a nearby business catches his silver minivan speeding away from the station at 11 p.m. That night, a police sketch based on reports of a suspicious man matches his face. His history of harassing women at their workplaces emerges a pattern of predation hidden behind his unassuming facade. In September 2016, Willis is charged with Jessica's kidnapping and murder. Prosecutors paint a grim picture. Willis abducted her from the station, took her to his grandfather's vacant house, and subjected her to unspeakable horrors before killing her with a 357 Taurus, its serial number partially filed off, but linked to him through DNA. His cousin, Kevin Bloom, a former correctional officer, confesses to helping dispose of her body, shown her remains in Willis's basement. "I didn't know what to do," Bloom says, his voice hollow. He was family, but he was a monster. The trial in May 2018 is a reckoning. Willis, already serving life for Rebecca Bletch's murder, faces a no-body case notoriously hard to prove. But the evidence is overwhelming. The minivan, the VIX folder, the surveillance. Bloom's testimony and a co-worker's chilling claim that Willis boasted about corpse disposal. The defense argues reasonable doubt, suggesting Jessica left voluntarily, but the jury takes just 90 minutes to convict him of kidnapping and first-degree murder. Shelley weeps as the verdict is read, her relief tempered by a lingering void. "He's gone. But where's my girl?" she whispers. Bloom, pleading guilty as an accessory, leads police to wooded areas near Sheridan and Lake On roads. Excavations and cadaver dogs yield nothing. Willis, anticipating betrayal, moved Jessica's remains, their location, a secret he guards with cold defiance. Shelley vows to keep searching, joined by volunteers who comb rural lots and abandoned fields. "I'll find her," she says, her voice steel. "For Zeon, for me." Jessica's loss reshapes Norton. Shores. The Jessica Herringa Act, passed in 2016, mandates safety measures for gas stations. Multiple staff on late shifts, panic buttons, 24/7 cameras. Annual vigils honor. Jessica raising funds for Zeon, now raised by Dakota and Shelley. Her absence is a wound that festers, but her memory fuels resilience. "She was light," Dakota says, at a memorial, Zeon's hand in his. "We carry that light now, yet the darkness lingers." Willis, unrepentant, offers no clues. The drop of blood, the empty counter, the minivan's tail lights, fading into the night, they haunt Norton Shores, a reminder of evil's reach and the strength of those who fight back. Jessica's story is unfinished, a puzzle missing its final piece. Somewhere her truth waits buried in the shadows, whispering for someone to listen.